Hello, my name is Orlando Torresilla from fincastorresilla.com. Well, attention to owners of video, VPPB and basic public protection housing in Madrid.
Viviendas de protección pública básica en Madrid, atención, porque si va a
Please note that if you are going to rent the property, you will have to include these 5 clauses in the rental contract.
5 cláusulas obligatoriamente en el contrato de alquiler. Por supuesto, luego va a tener que...
You will then have to bring this rental contract within 10 days. Notify the Community of Madrid to check if the contract complies with the maximum rental prices for the home.
Los precios máximos de renta para la vivienda en concreto.
Specifically, we have other videos explaining the maximum sale and rental price of the social housing VPPB in Madrid.
Una vivienda de protección oficial VPPB en Madrid.
And we are going to read these clauses so that you can put them in the rental contract.
Para que usted las pueda poner en el contrato de alquiler, que además le ofrecemos.
We also offer this service and will try to help you if you do not know how or cannot do it.
Puede hacerlo. Y dice que siguiendo...
And it says that, in accordance with the provisions of Section 14 of Decree 74/2009 of 30 July, which approves the regulations for public housing in the Community of Madrid, the following mandatory clauses are added to the lease contract.
Añadidas en el contrato de arrendamiento las siguientes cláusulas obligatorias. A. Que la vivienda está...
That the dwelling is subject to the prohibitions and limitations arising from the public protection regime provided for in these regulations, and where applicable in the Royal Decree regulating the corresponding state housing plan, when the dwelling has received the financing provided for therein, and that the conditions of use will be in the final qualification, not exceeding the rental prices of the established limits.
Establecidos. Paréntesis. Va a tener usted...
In parenthesis, you will have to calculate what the maximum rental price established for your home is based on the useful square meters of the home, storage room and garage, if you have some.
De trastero y de garaje, si los tiene. Si tiene alguna duda sobre esto,
If you have any questions about this, as we say, please contact us. Any other price that is higher than this maximum rental price for this social housing will result in your contract not being accepted. You will not be notified and, therefore, you will not be able to rent it to the tenant.
no va a poder alquilárselo al inquilino. Esto es muy importante porque...
This is very important, but as it can cause many problems. So, before renting any VPPB or VPO housing in Madrid, consult a specialist, an expert, who knows the subject, before making the contract.
Asunto antes de hacer el contrato.
Let's go to the second clause, clause B. A landlord is obliged to hand over the keys to the property within a maximum period of 3 months from the date of granting the final qualification, or from the date of the contract if it is later, unless said period is extended by the competent department in housing matters.
Bueno, pues el proceso...
Well, the process for signing the contract is to first sign the contract, put down a deposit, take the deposit to the property chamber, and take the contract to be endorsed by the Community of Madrid within a maximum period of 10 working days from the signing of the contract.
Entonces es lo que está diciendo.
So, what you were saying is that in the Community of Madrid will be approved, it will have time, and, of course, in the meantime, you may not have given them the keys so that the Community of Madrid can verify that the rental prices are met with established limits. The maximum rent, that the rent is lower, and that the tenant, who is the tenant, also meets the requirements to access VPB.
Para acceder a la vivienda VPP.
So, this clause is very important.
Muy importante.
The landlord is then obliged to provide the tenant with a copy of the contract duly endorsed by the competent housing department when it is endorsed.
Cuando esté visado, significa...
This means that everything has been approved by the Community of Madrid and must be handed over to the tenant.
Por ejemplo, sería...
For example, it would be when I give him the keys. When you give him the keys, he gives you the approved contract, and from there he starts counting the rent. Let's say that from there I could charge you the first month in advance.
Tercera, hemos leído...
The fourth, that the contract is entered into under the urban leasing law, and is subject to the legal regime provided therein, with the sole exception of the specifications derived from the public housing protection regime itself. Well, for example, in the urban leasing law, The parties agree that expenses that cannot be individualized, such as any tax, for example the property tax or the community fee, are the responsibility of the tenant.
Por ejemplo, el impuesto de bienes inmuebles o la comunidad sean a cuenta del inquilino.
Well, these things are typically agreed upon in this type of contract with limited income, maximum income.
Contratos con renta limitada, renta máxima,
Because what they do is, so to speak, increase income. And it must be done within what the urban leasing law says. Mind you, it says things.
Entonces,
So, it is important that the contract is drawn up by someone who knows you well. And fifth, that the total or partial subletting of the property will give rise to the termination of the contract.
es decir, aquí no se puede.
That is to say, here you cannot partially sublease the property with the written consent of the owner, which is what the rental law says.
La Comunidad de Madrid
The Community of Madrid says no, that the total or partial subletting, that is, a room in the home, gives rise to the termination of the contract and, of course, sublease the entire property. So, these 5 clauses are very important, 5 mandatory clauses that must be included in the rental contract for public housing in the Community of Madrid.
de Protección Pública de la Comunidad de Madrid. Espero que les haya gustado
I hope you enjoyed the video.
la acogida.
Thank you very much for the reception of these videos, and until the next videos, God willing, greetings Orlando Torsilla.